Lying around 500 kilometres from the main islands, Astove is little more than a strip of raised coral around a shallow lagoon, with just one channel pumping out into the open ocean. Astove is now uninhabited. Its last residents left over 30 years ago, and it was a story that ended in tragedy. The Vivas Carter family moved here in the early 1970s with plans to run an ecotourism business here, but they were well before their time. They built a hacienda-style house and established a copra plantation. But then disaster struck. Something simple, but on a remote island, untreatable. The husband had an abscess. After suffering for weeks in increasing pain, and with the infection spreading, he eventually managed to hitch a ride to Mombasa on a passing ship. But by then, it was just too late. He died in the dentist's chair. Communications were so sporadic then that it took 6 months for his wife to learn of her husband's death, and soon after she, her 3 daughters, and their handful of local labourers left the island for good, abandoning their dream that now lies in ruins. Virtually unexplored, Astove offers some of Seychelles' finest diving. The sheer wall starts at just a couple of metres below the surface and plummets vertically to several hundred metres deep. Millions of tiny coloured fish swarm everywhere, and rich, soft and hard corals crown the wall. And on this wall lies a clue that the Vivas Carter family were not the first residents of Astove. In around 1700, a Portuguese ship, crammed full of slaves taken from Mozambique, ran aground on the reef. Seizing the opportunity of freedom, the slaves killed most of the crew, but the captain escaped in the ship's longboat with a handful of his men, and they eventually made their way to the African coast. Not wanting to admit his error of navigation, the captain claimed that the slaves had simply escaped from the hold, taken the ship and slaughtered the crew. The French authorities sent a ship to recapture them, but were driven away from the island by the slaves. The surviving slaves then settled on the island and survived there for 25 years, until eventually a British ship came and either killed or captured almost all of them. Just a few remained, hidden in the scrub, but those survivors eventually died out. The wall at Astove is intriguing. Everywhere are overhangs, ledges and swim-throughs, and there you will find huge grouper and potato cod. Exhausted turtles sleep under the overhangs, while others wait for nightfall for their turn to haul themselves up the beach to nest. Potato cod and grouper patrol their territories along the wall, unafraid of these occasional human intrusions. And there's always the possibility of a blue water encounter. A manta passes along the wall, feeding on the rich plankton. This hammerhead cruised in from the blue to check out the human intruders to its world. And deep off the wall, one turtle almost falls prey to a giant grouper that was lurking by the abandoned anchor chain of a long-forgotten ship that visited the island.